So ever since Call of Duty World War II came out, I really have seen nothing but I, criticism. I was really actually shocked to see how much criticism now, given Call of Duty's history within, let's just say, the past 4 years, even past four games. Um, People really have been turned off by it. The community, I would even think, in my opinion, has gotten a lot smaller. And that's, I mean, not necessarily a good thing, but it's, I guess it was needed in a way, just because now from the past couple games, this is where we're at. This is what a lot of people wanted for a couple years, but even then, even then, you cannot please everybody. Like, for example, I saw this article that somebody I know shared, and I won't bore you with the full detail, just because it was a fairly lengthy article. Basically, they had compared Medal of Honor, the one that released all the way back in 2002, so 15 years ago, hell of a long time. They thought that it would be good to compare this current game, which is what you see in the background, to Medal of Honor, which I love the Medal of Honor series. I haven't played all the games, but the 2002 one was great. I don't remember it as much. I'm more familiar with Call of Duty than I am Medal of Honor, but from my experience, I didn't play it back in 2002, but I played it a couple years ago, let's say, and it was good. But there's a couple key aspects on why I think the article was wrong. Um, One being that Medal of Honor and Call of Duty really are not the same game. Are they both first-person shooters? Yes. Um, are they both kind of an arcade style? You could say that. I would even say Call of Duty is a little bit more cartoonish in a way, if you could even see it from that perspective. But to really say that, or really to even try and compare a Normandy landing mission from, and it wasn't even the first mission, mind you, of that game. I think there was like two missions prior to that of them kind of showing you the controls and whatnot, which was fine, especially with not a lot of people knowing maybe really what to do, and I've even needed that on some games. But to really sit there and try and say that what they did now with this first mission, kind of, I've even seen people kind of compare it like with a cakewalk. It's so easy, and it's just point and click, and you just go this, you go there, and that's not entirely wrong. But here's the thing with that: Call of Duty in itself, even I could even remember from COD 2. That's how it's always been. I mean, you could even see in the background, it shows you the objective. Now, do you need to know where the objective is? Of course you do, because obviously you're not going to advance. And depending really on the situation and where you are on the map, you can kind of just use common sense and kind of decipher on where to go, but not everybody knows where to go. And so those key objectives are highlighted when you don't need to have them highlighted. It gives you the option. You could even see me do it multiple times during this. Um, but it really got me thinking, and I even uh, went on and did some research. There have been a couple games, like let's even take into effect Battlefield 1942. That had an Omaha Beach landing. I didn't play that as much. I am familiar with Battlefield though. Company of Heroes, which is a fairly different style of gaming, but it did have that landing. Medal of Honor Frontline, which I addressed. That was one of the older and still really good Medal of Honors. I would even pick it up today. Not a bad game. But like I said, you cannot actually sit there and try and compare one, especially something that people have wanted for years. I mean, people in this community, and I mean, this community is already cancerous enough, but people have wanted this since what, Advanced Warfare days, and when did that come out? 2014, 2013-ish. I may be wrong date wise, but around that ballpark. And it didn't click with anybody. Cause I've said this ever since it came out, ever since they released the first trailer, E3, blah blah blah, all that shit. I've said it then, and I will keep saying it. People want it. We all want to change. I want to change. My buddies want to change. Everybody that played this franchise wanted change. But in my mind, I don't think Sledgehammer listened to us. They did, but I think they took it too far because they tipped the futuristic scale for the next couple years, and I'm not wrong about that. In a full sense, you could really even say that they didn't kick off the futuristic, but when I mean futuristic, I'm talking about the jetpacks, the fucking cybernetic robots fisting you, all that shit. If you want to be fairly technical about it, which you can be, Black Ops 2 Treyarch, they set in motion the futuristic thing. But the thing with that is, even though there were cybernetics and whatnot, there were no jetpacks. There wasn't any of that shit. If anything, they just had cloaking in the campaign and whatnot. But I mean, that was only set in 2025, and then we had 2065 in Black Ops 3, which was honestly not the best sequel campaign wise. And really, that started Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare, Black Ops 3. Out of the three, Black Ops 3 was only well welcomed one. At least from what I've seen. But I would even argue in saying that there's an arrogance in trying to compare this to any other Normandy game, because it really, if you think about it, every single one of these games is, if it's going to be World War II, I mean, you kind of just have to expect a Normandy invasion, especially if it's going to be like a full-fledged campaign, just like this one is. And I do see people's criticisms that make sense. Like, there's a huge one. They're like, oh, you know, if I wanted to see a movie, I would just rent this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Some shitty little cheesy joke. And they're not wrong. There are a fair amount of cutscenes. And one thing I really could care less for are the quick time events. There are a lot to me in this one. This first mission, I think there's only... I'm pretty sure there's only two. The Bangalore one in the beginning, which you see, and then there's one later on where Zussman gets... Actually, well, there's three. Yeah, there's three. Zussman tackles the German, and you hit him with your helmet. That's the third and final one. The second one is, I believe, trying to fight off the knife wielder. Which, if I'm not wrong, that was actually in Call of Duty 3. So I don't know if that's like a little tiny homage, because Call of Duty 3 was World War II as well. And Call of Duty 3 is a great game. But in one of the missions that he does pop around a corner and try and knife you. I don't know if he beats him with a helmet. I'm pretty sure he just kicks him or shoots him. I haven't played the game in years. But it's like I said, there's a certain type of arrogance to me, to really kind of sit there and say that a game from 2002, not even really saying, am I going to be like, oh, Call of Duty being where it's at, and trying to say, oh, you know, it's the best. Which, I mean, me being a fan of it, I could be that arrogant and say that, but I won't. Because, I mean, Call of Duty's not, I wouldn't say it's top tier anymore. I believe it's going to get there eventually. Is it gonna take some time? Yes. But this is a really good stepping stone. They're going in the right direction, I believe personally. I want to say that the last futuristic one that we had, Infinite Warfare, it just wasn't good. It wasn't well received. I do actually believe that it's still one of the most highly rated disliked videos on YouTube. I haven't checked up on it. I watched the trailer a couple times. That was about it. I didn't even dislike it or like it. I just watched it and I was like, I had mixed emotions because I still wanted to play Call of Duty and whatnot, but then, of course, to sell more copies, they bundled MWR with that, and that was kind of a cheap move, but marketing-wise, I could see why they did that. And I actually stand corrected. There's about 5 or 6 quick times, and most of them are in this scene. Uh, and it's really one of those things where if you don't like quick events, you might not enjoy some of these missions. If I'm gonna be completely honest here, just because in a lot of these there are a good amount of quick time events. I think there's even, and this is gonna be a spoiler later on. Um, you're in, I think you're actually in Paris if I'm not mistaken, and you play as this French resistance fighter. And if I'm not wrong, because it has been a couple of days since I played the campaign, I do believe that you do a fair amount of quick time events. I might be wrong, so don't hold me to that, especially if you played it. Um, but it's one of those things where I mean I could get over the quick time events because to me this is one of the best and most gorgeous looking campaigns I've ever seen in a Call of Duty, and at least in recent years. Graphics wise, graphics don't make a game. I've constantly seen that too. Oh, the graphics look like shit. Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, could you do any better? I always ask that to somebody, and I usually get a fair amount of silence, and then they just say something idiotic, like children. But really getting back to the point of that article, that really compelled me to make this. I wanted to make a video like this because I was gonna speak about this eventually, but that I think that article really kicked it off for me mentally, just because if you can sit there and try and condemn this game, now it's okay to not be a fan of the game. That's perfectly fine. But to really sit there and say, "Oh, the graphics are terrible. This game is better than that," blah blah blah. But to really mainly get down and start saying that, "Oh, a game that came out in 2002 that has the same mission, Omaha Beach, blah blah blah. You should just go play that." Which I mean, you could play that. You can play that. It's fine. Nothing against that. Medal of Honor, like I said in the beginning of the video, is a great series. I love it. I used to play Warfighter on the Xbox all the time. But the game came out in 2002. That was 15 fucking years ago. So to really sit there and say that, I could just, from reading the article, I could just tell that this guy was a major fanboy of the game, which I'm wrong with that. There's games that I'm a fanboy of that I would defend because it's my strong opinion of it. But I just feel like it was fueled with a fair amount of arrogance simply because they were just, in a way, kind of forcing you. Now, well, I shouldn't say forcing. Obviously, they wouldn't force you, but in a way, almost trying to compel you to just be like, "Oh, don't even give this game a chance. It's terrible. It's blah blah blah." Which, opinion-wise, you can have that, but factual statements prove, and they are proving it right now. I mean, you can even see in the background, the game looks amazing. But graphics to me, more often than not, as I've gotten older, I could give two fucks about. If the game looks great, that's just a bonus. Um, my views on how the game will function are better. No, well, I shouldn't say better. They are sometimes aligned with people's and sometimes aren't. But that's how the shit works. Um, but yeah, I mean, Medal of Honor 2002. It's one of those things where you can't just dwell on it. You can't just say, "Oh, it's a copy and paste." If we really looked at shit like that, then a lot of the games, a lot of the stuff in life that we have now, or that we will have or have had, you could just say they're carbon copies of them. I mean, you really can because they're. I listed off what 3 different games. Of course, they're gonna have the same missions. It's World War fucking II. I mean, did a lot of things happen during the span of World War II? Yes, but I mean, Omaha Beach is one of the, if not the biggest assaults during the war, apart from the Battle of the Bulge and whatnot. Um, but I mean, if you can really sit there and try and say that a game from 2000 fucking 15 years ago, remember that, 15 years ago. If you can really sit there and try and say that a game is copying that game from that long ago, I really don't know what kind of gamer you could be at that point, simply because it just doesn't make sense to me. I can kind of understand the viewpoint a little bit, because like I said, maybe they're a huge fan of the game. But I mean, realistically speaking, and on a factual viewpoint, it's honestly kind of stupid. Um, am I calling the person stupid who wrote the article? In a sense, no. I'm not trying to, because like I said, opinions. But I feel like it was more feeling appropriated words than actual factual words. Just because after I read it, the certain segments where you could actually see um, them saying, "Oh, well, you might as well just go play this game from 2002 instead." But I mean, that's gonna be like saying, this game. Another thing, this game stole the bayonet charge from Battlefield 1. How the fuck did they do that? Battlefield 1 was the only game to ever have a bayonet charge and or a bayonet. I've even seen people say that a bayonet was copied from Battlefield 1. No, it wasn't. It fucking, how many war games have had a bayonet? I mean, that's another topic for another video. But this is really one of those things where I felt I needed to talk about it just because, and I don't do this a lot, but it really came down to a matter of arrogance. At least in my mind, I thought it was pretty fairly arrogant. Um, they're not the same. They're not supposed to be the same. They're two different fucking series. Um, are they both World War II? Yes. Are they both Omaha Beach? Yes. But um, the fact of the matter is that Call of Duty is outliving Medal of Honor. Medal of Honor has not been doing good past couple of years. Let's all be honest. It's just like any other dying franchise, like Metal Gear Solid. That game franchise is in the shitter. Call of Duty would have been in the shitter if Sledgehammer would have made Advanced Warfare 2. Um, Nobody would have bought that shit. They would have had to bundle it again. And yeah, I mean, to me, I really just do not feel like it was worth writing that, just because it to me made no sense and it never will. Yeah, I mean that's really all I really wanted to talk about that. But I'll leave off with this: if you have a certain opinion of a certain game, and if you think it's like one thing or you think it's another, that's perfectly fine. But an issue arises when you just will speak more off of feelings than actual factual evidence, or really just common sense and fucking logic. And it never has made any sense to me, and I don't think it ever will. I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. I might do more like this in the future. If you want to see that, be sure to drop a like, comment, and I will see you on the next one.